It all started at Vancouver International Airport. A family, a whole clan of 20, emerged from the arrivals gate. They were from the Czech Republic, and yes, you heard that right, a sprawling Czech family of 20 people had just stepped off the same flight to Canada. 3 generations, from the grandmother down to her teenage grandchildren, had embarked on an unprecedented adventure, one that would soon send ripples across their community back in Europe. More astonishingly, in the weeks that followed their return to the Czech Republic, the international food aisles of the Formosa market in Prague would see long lines of blonde-haired, blue-eyed Czechs forming. The immigration desks at Vancouver's airport would begin to see a noticeable uptick in European visitors. What on earth happened to this family of 20? How could a mere 2-week trip to Canada transform not only their lives but also ignite a Canada craze across Europe? This incredible, impactful story begins now. Hello, my name is Anna, and I was living a typical, predictable life working in an office in Prague. One evening, after a long day, I was sitting on my sofa, scrolling aimlessly through my phone. A short video, pushed into my feed by some algorithm, caught my eye. It was a nighttime scene of a city called Vancouver. In the clip, a woman was jogging alone, well after midnight. With her headphones in, she moved with a casual, relaxed gait that looked utterly natural. At first, I couldn't believe it. This was a scene unimaginable in most of Europe. In Prague, it's not advisable for a woman to be out alone after 11 p.m. My parents constantly warned me to be careful, and I had long made it a habit to take a taxi home if I was out late. But the city in the video was different. The streetlights cast a bright, safe glow, and every corner store and cafe seemed to be warmly lit. Besides the lone jogger, there were other people around, couples strolling hand in hand, cyclists gliding by, all moving about with a daytime sense of ease and security. The city was alive. I read the video's description. It mentioned that in Canada, you could get a hot, delicious meal from a food truck, even in the wee hours of the morning, that 24-hour businesses were commonplace, and that you could order food delivery at any time of night. Could a country like this truly exist? My curiosity was piqued. I shared the video to our family's group chat. Our family is a large one, spanning 3 generations under one broad, connected roof. It starts with my grandparents, then my parents, my uncle's family, and my aunt's family altogether, more than 20 of us. We gather often for holidays and weekends, so our group chat is always buzzing. The moment I posted the video, the reactions started flooding in. The first to respond was my 16-year-old nephew, a huge fan of Canadian indie music, which had already made him curious about the country. He asked if the video was real. I told him I wasn't sure myself. That evening, we all gathered at my grandmother's house. The original plan was to prepare for my grandfather's upcoming birthday, but the conversation naturally drifted to Canada. My parents' generation, in their 60s, were skeptical. Their impression of North American countries was often a mix of Hollywood stereotypes, dangerous big cities, and vast, empty wilderness. They worried about safety. But the younger generation felt differently. My nephews loved Canadian artists. My uncle used tech from a Canadian company, and my sister often bought Canadian skincare products online. Canada, it seemed, was already a part of our lives in ways we hadn't fully realized. Then, my grandfather spoke up. He mentioned how the cost of living in the Czech Republic had skyrocketed lately, and even a vacation within Europe was no longer cheap. On a whim, my uncle looked up flight prices. He was stunned to find that a round-trip ticket to Vancouver was almost the same price as a flight to Spain or Italy. When he looked up accommodation and food costs, the surprise grew. A hotel in downtown Vancouver was more affordable than one in Prague or Rome. Restaurant prices were reasonable, and public transportation was half the cost of what we were used to in Europe. From a purely economic standpoint, a trip to Canada was surprisingly feasible. It was my grandmother who made the suggestion. "Why don't we all go and see for ourselves?" she said. It had been over 20 years since our entire family had traveled together. Since the cousins were little, life had gotten in the way, and we'd never found the opportunity. Coordinating 20 people was no small feat. Aligning schedules was a logistical nightmare, and booking 20 plane tickets at once was a challenge. But the family was energized. Everyone juggled their vacation days, requested time off from school, and rearranged their commitments. For 2 months, we planned. The more we learned about Canada, the more astonishing facts we uncovered. It had some of the world's most livable cities, a highly developed public transit system, and an advanced healthcare system. Still, I was only half convinced. Information online can be exaggerated. I felt we had to see it with our own eyes. The night before our departure, I couldn't sleep. I was more worried than excited. Could a family of 20 travel safely through an unfamiliar country? Would the language barrier be a problem? Could my grandparents handle the long flight? Yet, underneath the anxiety, there was a thrill. I wanted to see for myself if those nighttime streets were as safe as they appeared in the video. I wanted to experience the convenience of a city that never sleeps. Most importantly, the very idea of the whole family traveling together was something truly special. And so, the 20 of us boarded a plane to Vancouver. At that moment, I had no idea that this trip was about to change the destiny of our family. The moment we arrived at Vancouver International Airport is one I'll never forget. The walk from the gate to the immigration hall was unlike anything I'd expected. Instead of advertisements, the walls were adorned with magnificent First Nations art, towering totem poles, and intricate carvings that seemed to tell the story of the land. It felt like walking through a museum that was alive with culture. What surprised me most was the wait time at immigration. For a group of 20, it took less than 30 minutes. There were dozens of automated kiosks. You simply scanned your passport, took a photo, and you were through. A friendly staff member helped my grandfather navigate the process with ease. At the baggage claim, another surprise awaited us. All of our luggage had already been gathered and placed together in one area. An airport employee explained that the system automatically groups luggage for travelers on the same booking. The efficiency of it all was simply magical. To get to our hotel, we took the SkyTrain. Descending one level, we found a pristine platform. A train arrived in less than 5 minutes. The train itself was even more impressive. Every car was clean, there were ample charging ports, and free Wi-Fi was available. Even as we traveled at high speed, the internet connection never dropped. The view from the window left everyone speechless. Gleaming glass towers rose into the sky, interspersed with lush green parks. A wide river cut through the urban landscape, its banks lined with parks and long, winding bike paths. It was immediately clear how thoughtfully this city had been planned. From the station downtown, we took taxis to our hotel. Our driver spoke some English, but not fluently. However, his car was equipped with a tablet that provided real-time translation. I would speak in English, and it would translate to Mandarin for him. As he was a recent immigrant, his reply in Mandarin would then be translated back into English for us. Thanks to this system, we communicated effortlessly. We arrived at the hotel around 10 p.m. After checking in and dropping our bags, my 15-year-old nephew complained he was hungry. I worried that no restaurants would be open this late. The front desk staff, however, recommended we check out a nearby street famous for its food trucks. "They're open late, and you can get all kinds of amazing food," she assured us. Skeptical but hopeful, we walked to the street she mentioned. It was just like in the video. It was past 11 p.m., but the street was brightly lit and bustling with people. The air was filled with delicious smells from a dozen different food trucks. There were gourmet hot dogs, Japanese-style poutine, authentic tacos, and more. The staff at each truck were friendly, explaining their menus and making recommendations. The nephews chose a Japadog, a Japanese-inspired hot dog, while I opted for a butter chicken naan wrap. The prices were very reasonable, each item costing around 10 to 15 Canadian dollars, less than 10 euros. The taste was another shock. For street food, the quality was exceptional. The ingredients were fresh and the flavors were complex and delicious. My nephews couldn't stop saying how good it was, giving enthusiastic thumbs ups. My grandmother, too, was impressed. "It's so clean and tasty," she remarked. Leaving the food truck area, I looked around. It was nearly midnight, but the streets were still populated. People were jogging, cycling, and couples were taking leisurely strolls. The bright streetlights and visible security cameras provided a sense of safety. My nephews wanted to explore more. My parents looked a bit worried, but I remembered the hotel staff's assurance that the neighborhood was very safe. We decided to walk around the block for 30 minutes. It was an incredible experience. Not once did I feel a hint of anxiety walking those streets at night. It was liberating, a feeling I could never have in Prague. People were relaxing on park benches, and groups of young people were chatting and laughing outside a cafe. As we walked back to the hotel, we all shared the same thought. Canada was truly a different kind of country. The very first day had already exceeded all our expectations. I was awake early the next morning, my body still adjusting to the time difference. At 5 a.m., I looked out the window. The city was already stirring. People were out exercising, and commuters were heading to work. The city was waking up. My grandfather was also an early riser, so we decided to take a walk around the hotel. The morning air was crisp and clean. We came across a small park where a group of seniors was practicing Tai Chi. My grandfather watched with interest. One of the men approached us with a friendly smile. He didn't speak English, but with hand gestures, he invited us to join them. That day, we decided to explore the city using the SkyTrain. For a group of 20, it was far more efficient than taking multiple taxis. We found the nearest station easily. Large signs and maps were everywhere. The station itself was spotless. The floors shone, the walls were clean, and most importantly, there was no smell. Old European metro stations have a distinct, musty odor, but this one was completely fresh. Buying transit passes was simple. Automated machines with clear, multilingual instructions made it easy to purchase and load 20 cards at once. The machine processed the transaction in seconds. Down on the platform, safety gates lined the tracks. An electronic board showed the next train arriving in exactly 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and right on cue, the train glided silently into the station. The interior of the train was also impressive. The seating was efficiently laid out, and there were grab bars at various heights for everyone from children to adults. There were designated priority seats for the elderly, and most passengers respectfully left them vacant. When my grandmother went to sit, a young man immediately offered her his spot. The internet connection remained strong, even deep underground. My nephews found this fascinating, staring at their phones in disbelief. Having reliable mobile service in a subway was unheard of back home. We got off at a stop near Granville Island, a place known for its public market, artisan shops, and food. The moment we stepped out, we were hit by a wave of vibrant energy. Although it was a weekday, the area was bustling, not with a sense of being crowded, but with a lively, creative spirit. Walking through the Granville Island market, we stopped in front of a stall selling West Coast-style seafood. The menu had large photos and English descriptions. Something called a wild salmon burger caught my eye. It was a grilled salmon fillet with fresh vegetables on a bun. It looked delicious. We found a large food court area, and although we were a group of 20, we managed to find seating. The vendor was a bit surprised by our large order, but quickly and cheerfully prepared our food. Ordering was easy with the clear menus. When the food arrived, everyone gasped. The colors were so vibrant, the deep pink of the salmon, the bright green of the lettuce, and the red of the tomatoes. The taste was even better. A tangy dill sauce perfectly complemented the rich salmon. My grandmother commented on how fresh and delicious the fish was. She was very pleased. During our meal, the owner of the stall came over with a tray of candied salmon, a local delicacy, and offered it to us on the house. He said he was happy to see such a large family of tourists enjoying his food. That small act of kindness warmed our hearts. When it came time to pay, we were again surprised. The total bill for 20 hearty meals was much less than we expected, averaging about $20 per person, which was about 15 euros. After lunch, we explored the island. My sister was drawn to the many artisan shops selling handmade soaps and crafts. She went into one, and the shopkeeper explained her products in perfect English, even offering samples. The prices were reasonable, and the quality looked excellent. As evening approached, we prepared to head back to the hotel. The nephews were reluctant to leave, looking as if they could explore forever. The day felt too short. On the SkyTrain ride back, everyone was tired but happy. Our first full day in Canada had been nothing short of spectacular. On the third day, something unexpected happened. My 14-year-old nephew lost his phone on the SkyTrain. He realized it was gone only after we had left the station, remembering that he must have left it on his seat when he stood up. My aunt and uncle were frantic. They knew how difficult it is to recover a lost phone in a foreign country. We went to the station office and explained the situation to an attendant. He was calm and professional. He asked which line we were on and which direction we were traveling, then immediately entered the information into his computer system. Amazingly, less than 10 minutes later, he received a message. A staff member at the next station had found the phone on the seat. The attendant told us we could pick it up by simply taking the train one stop further. Sure enough, when we arrived at the next station, the phone was waiting for us at the station office. After a quick check of his ID to confirm his identity, my nephew had his phone back. He was overjoyed, and my aunt and uncle were immensely relieved. What surprised us even more was the attendant's casual reaction. He smiled and said this happens all the time. He explained that their lost and found system is so efficient that most items are returned to their owners. In one corner of the office, we saw shelves neatly organized with forgotten umbrellas, bags, and wallets. The existence of such a system was, in itself, astonishing. That evening, another concern arose. My sister is a vegetarian, and we realized that much of the cuisine we had encountered so far was meat or fish-based. We worried she would have a hard time finding food. However, a quick online search revealed that Vancouver has a thriving vegetarian and vegan scene, with more options than we could have imagined. We went to a vegetarian buffet restaurant, a place that reimagined traditional vegetarian dishes with a modern twist. The moment we stepped inside, we were greeted by the subtle aroma of fresh vegetables and spices. The warm, wooden interior created a peaceful atmosphere. All the dishes were made from plant-based ingredients, yet the flavors were incredibly rich and diverse. There were dishes made with exotic mushrooms, creative tofu preparations, and a wide variety of fresh salads and vegetable stir-fries. My sister was thrilled. She said it's not always easy to find such a high-quality, dedicated vegetarian restaurant even in Europe, and to find one this amazing in Canada was a delightful surprise. Even the non-vegetarians in our family enjoyed the meal immensely. It was healthy, clean, and delicious. After dinner, we decided to visit the Capilano Suspension Bridge. The idea of such a massive nature park so close to the city center was incredible. We took a shuttle bus up the mountain. The view of the city lights from above was breathtaking. The entire city twinkled below us. Walking across the suspension bridge, swaying gently over the canyon, was a thrill. The park was beautifully lit, creating a magical atmosphere among the giant, ancient trees. My grandfather was in awe. He said the city's planning was truly brilliant. He had never seen a city that so perfectly balanced urban development with the preservation of nature. Indeed, Vancouver's modern architecture coexisted harmoniously with its natural surroundings. Near the park exit, we found a cozy lodge with a fireplace. It seemed so uniquely Canadian. We went inside and ordered hot chocolate. The menu also featured local craft beers and ciders. My uncle and father tried some local brews while we warmed up by the fire. Looking out the window at the dark forest, with the city lights twinkling in the distance, felt surreal. drinking hot chocolate in a mountain lodge with my family, these were the small moments that accumulate to form the lasting memories of a trip. That night, back at the hotel, we held a family meeting to share our impressions of the trip so far. Everyone was overwhelmingly positive. My grandmother, in particular, said she was touched by the kindness of the Canadian people. Every time we asked for directions, people would stop and patiently help. When we looked lost, someone would always offer assistance. On our fourth day, we decided to have a special experience, a visit to the Squamish Lil'wat Cultural Center in Whistler, a town in the mountains north of Vancouver. We heard it was a place where you could learn about the Indigenous cultures of the region. The idea of the whole family immersing themselves in a culture so different from our own was exciting. The drive to Whistler itself was spectacular, along the sea-to-sky highway with its stunning views of the ocean and mountains. Arriving at the cultural center, we felt as if we had stepped into another world. The building itself was a beautiful work of art, made of wood and glass, designed to resemble traditional Indigenous longhouses. Inside, we were greeted by a young guide from the Squamish Nation. He led us through the exhibits, explaining the history, traditions, and art of his people and the Lil'wat Nation. We saw intricately carved masks, beautiful woven blankets, and giant hand-carved canoes. The guide didn't just recite facts, he told us stories that had been passed down through generations. He even sang a traditional welcome song, his voice echoing powerfully in the main hall. The experience was deeply moving. We learned about their connection to the land, their respect for nature, and the challenges their cultures have faced. It was so different from the history we knew in Europe. Everyone, from my grandparents to the youngest nephews, listened with rapt attention. After the tour, we participated in a workshop to make our own dream catchers. An elder from the Lil'wat Nation patiently showed us how to weave the web and attach the feathers. As we worked, she shared more stories and teachings. The atmosphere was calm and meditative. Holding the finished dream catcher in my hands, I felt like I was holding a small piece of a rich and ancient culture. Lunch was at the center's cafe, which served modern dishes inspired by traditional Indigenous ingredients. We tried salmon chowder, bison chili, and bannock, a traditional bread. The flavors were unique and delicious, hearty, wholesome, and deeply connected to the land. During the meal, our guide came to our table to chat. He was curious about our large family traveling together and asked about our home in the Czech Republic. We talked for a long time, sharing stories about our different cultures. That warm, personal connection was the highlight of the day. This day of cultural immersion was incredibly special. It showed us that Canada was not just a country of modern cities and beautiful landscapes, but also one with a deep, living history and rich traditions. What impressed me most was that this culture wasn't confined to a museum. It was vibrant, alive, and proudly shared by its people. That evening, as we drove back to Vancouver, the setting sun casting a golden glow on the mountains, a sense of profound respect and gratitude filled our car. The experience had left a lasting impression on all of us. The nephews were already looking at the photos we took, and my grandmother said the stories she heard would stay with her forever. On the sixth day, the unthinkable happened. My grandfather woke up complaining of chest pain. He had a history of high blood pressure, so we were immediately concerned. I called 911. An operator answered instantly, and when she realized I was a tourist, she spoke slowly and clearly, calmly getting our information. She assured me that paramedics were on their way. The response time was astonishing. Less than 5 minutes after I hung up the phone, 2 paramedics were at our hotel room door. They were professional and efficient, carrying a stretcher and advanced medical equipment. They quickly took my grandfather's blood pressure and heart rate and performed a preliminary ECG, determining he needed to go to the hospital. I went with my grandparents in the ambulance. The vehicle was equipped like a mobile emergency room. During the ride, the paramedics continuously monitored my grandfather's condition while relaying the information to the hospital so a team would be ready. When we arrived at the hospital's emergency department, a team of doctors and nurses was already waiting. We were taken directly to an examination room, where they immediately began conducting more tests, including an electrocardiogram and blood work. The entire process was fast and organized. We were never treated differently or made to wait because we were foreigners. Fortunately, the diagnosis was not serious. It was a temporary condition brought on by travel fatigue and the stress of adjusting to the time difference. The doctor explained everything to us in perfect English, reassuring us that after some medication and a day of rest, he would be fine. My biggest worry was the cost. Although we had travel insurance, I dreaded to think how much an ambulance ride, emergency room visit, and all those tests would cost. When I went to the billing office to handle the paperwork for our insurance claim, I was surprised. The total cost, while significant, was clearly itemized and seemed reasonable for the level of care provided. The staff was incredibly helpful, explaining that Canada has a public healthcare system, and while tourists pay out of pocket, the focus is always on patient care first. They even helped me begin the process of filing our insurance claim. Leaving the hospital, I felt a huge sense of relief. I had always feared a medical emergency abroad, but the swift, professional, and compassionate response we received was incredible. In that moment, I understood what it meant to have a world-class healthcare system. Back at the hotel, my grandfather rested in bed. He took his medication and slept. The family watched over him with worried faces, but by evening, he was already feeling much better. His color had returned, and he ate a light dinner. The next morning, he declared he was perfectly fine and wanted to continue our trip. We decided to take it easy anyway, modifying our plans to include more rest and less strenuous activities. That afternoon, we took a gentle stroll in a small park near our hotel. My grandfather walked slowly, taking in the sights. The park was well maintained, with people relaxing on benches and children playing. It was a peaceful scene. While we were resting on a bench, an elderly woman approached us. She spoke Cantonese, but with a translation app on my phone, we were able to communicate. She asked where we were from. When I told her we were from the Czech Republic, her face lit up and she happily took my hand. She pulled some candies from her pocket and offered them to my nephews. We chatted with her for a long time. She asked about my grandchildren, if our family was healthy, and how we were enjoying our trip. The conversation, though filtered through an app, felt genuine and heartfelt. When we said goodbye, she waved and told us to visit again. That brief encounter was so warm. It showed me that even with language barriers, human connection is universal. I truly felt the famous Canadian friendliness, the kindness shown to complete strangers. It was deeply moving. That evening, we had a simple meal, using room service at the hotel. My grandfather seemed fully recovered. We could resume our normal itinerary the next day. The whole family breathed a collective sigh of relief. On the seventh day, my social media started to change. The photos and videos I had been posting throughout the trip began to attract a flood of comments. At first, it was just my friends. They asked questions like, "Is Canada really that clean? And is it really that safe?" Their interest grew day by day. When I posted a photo of the food trucks at midnight, the reaction was explosive. Dozens of people commented that they couldn't believe such a variety of high-quality food was available so late. A video of the clean, punctual SkyTrain also got a lot of attention, with many saying it was amazing to see such a modern and efficient subway system. One friend sent me a private message. He said he had gone to a specialty import store in Prague after seeing my posts, specifically to buy Canadian maple syrup and smoked salmon. Another friend told me she had started watching a popular Canadian TV show. My sister said her colleagues at work were constantly asking her questions about planning a trip to Canada, how much it cost, if it was safe, what to pack. Several of them said they were already looking at flights. Our trip was influencing more people than we ever imagined. On the night before our flight back to the Czech Republic, we held one last family meeting. All 20 of us gathered to share our final thoughts on the trip. My grandfather spoke first. He said he had never seen a country so orderly, clean, and safe. He praised the kindness of the people and the excellence of the systems. My grandmother said the food was wonderful. She loved that she could eat healthy, diverse meals every day, especially the abundance of fresh fruits and vegetables. My parents' generation marveled at the public transportation system. They said that such a punctual, clean, and accessible SkyTrain was rare even in Europe, noting how the elevators and escalators everywhere made it easy for the elderly and families to get around. My uncle was amazed by the technology. He pointed out how automated systems, translation apps, and other innovations were seamlessly integrated into daily life. But what impressed him most, he said, was that the technology was designed to help people, not replace them. My nephews said Canada was just plain fun. They talked about the vibrant city life, the incredible nature, and the feeling of freedom. Most importantly, they loved that they could safely explore the city late into the night. For me, it was the kindness of the Canadian people that left the deepest impression. The way strangers would stop to help, the genuine interest they showed in us, and the care they extended to foreigners was heartwarming. The one thing everyone agreed on was that they wanted to come back. 2 weeks felt too short. There was so much more to see and do. Someone suggested we shouldn't wait until next year, but should try to come back again within the year. Everyone cheered in agreement. That night, as I packed my suitcase, a feeling of sadness washed over me. The 2 weeks in Canada had felt like a dream. When I first saw that short video, I was skeptical. But having experienced it myself, I found that it was even better than advertised. It was a safe, clean, and convenient country filled with kind people. At Vancouver International Airport, as we went through the departure process, no one wanted to leave. The nephews kept saying they wanted to stay. We did some last-minute shopping in the duty-free stores, buying maple cookies, ice wine, and souvenirs for friends. As we boarded the plane, I looked out the window at the Canadian landscape receding below. I made a silent promise to myself, I will be back. After a flight of more than 10 hours, we arrived back in Prague. We were home, but our minds and hearts felt like they were still somewhere else. The day after we returned, the changes began. My phone was inundated with calls and messages from friends wanting to know all about our trip to Canada. When I went out for coffee, the conversation was always about Canada. Everyone was fascinated. It was the same at work. During lunch breaks, my colleagues would gather around to hear my stories and look at my photos, their eyes wide with wonder. Several of them told me they had already booked their flights. One colleague even said he had started taking English lessons. When I went to the local Formosa market, which had a small North American section, I was shocked. The number of Czech shoppers in that aisle had noticeably increased. A place once frequented mainly by expats now had more local customers. The owner greeted me with a huge smile, saying business had been booming. About a month later, our family group chat was as active as ever. My nephews were now streaming Canadian TV shows. My uncle was following Canadian news. My grandmother announced she had bought a Canadian cookbook and had successfully made poutine at home, claiming it was delicious. 3 months later, we gathered again. This time, it was to seriously plan our next trip to Canada. While getting all 20 of us to go again would be difficult, we figured a group of about 10 was possible. We set a date and started looking at flights. I started taking English classes more seriously. I enrolled in an online course and practiced a little every day, learning simple greetings and basic phrases. Next time, I wanted to be able to order food in English without hesitation. My social media following had also grown significantly. People interested in traveling to Canada were constantly messaging me for advice. They asked where to go, what to eat, and how to prepare. I answered every message as detailedly as I could. About 6 months later, I was back in Canada. This time, There were 10 of us: my grandparents, my parents, and a few of my nephews and me. Being our second visit, we were more relaxed and confident. We revisited some of our favorite spots and explored new ones. What amazed me was the pace of change. Even in just 6 months, new restaurants had opened, a new public art installation was up, and new attractions were being promoted. It was a city that was constantly evolving. To this day, Canada is always on my mind. My family and I frequently seek out Canadian-themed events, watch Canadian films, and follow news from the country. For us, Canada is now a special place. It's not just a travel destination. It's a place we feel a deep connection to. That one short video changed the destiny of my family. It taught me how important it is to experience new things without prejudice. Canada taught us so much. It showed us how a safe society, an efficient system, and kind people can coexist in harmony. In the future, I will continue to visit Canada. And now, I plan to bring my friends along. I want more people to know the real Canada. I want them to experience for themselves the feeling that photos and videos can never fully capture.